Hello and welcome to this Dawn Busters, or really an overnight taste challenge, because it's only 5:34 a.m. Central Standard Time, and there won't be any light peeking out to at least 6 a.m. So call it what you want. But regardless of that, it is a taste challenge between Early Times Kentucky Straight Whiskey. So this is a straight whiskey introduced in 1860, sold in some countries as a bourbon, but it can't be sold as a bourbon in the United States because they age it in used barrels. Okay. Doesn't say anything about sourdough, and I didn't see that on the website either. So that's straight, and this one's gay. I'm just kidding. All right, Heaven Hill Mild and Mellow Kentucky Blended Whiskey. They're both from Kentucky. They're both aged 3 years in used barrels. They're both 80 proof. Whoops, label out. They're both 80 proof, but one is straight whiskey and one is blended now. And also this one is using sour mash whiskey and the other one is not, apparently. Y'all get snow last night, says Matthew Harrelson. No, it was clear as a bell. Now, yesterday morning, there was some snow in southern, very far southern Louisiana, like Plaquemines Parish, that part that sticks way out like a little finger, the mouth of the Mississippi River. That peninsula, yeah, that's what you call it. A peninsula. It snowed down there, believe it or not. Yeah, do you know that people live down there? There's a town called Boothville, Venice. You can drive. There's a highway, goes all the way down, and then it just stops. And you got the Gulf of Mexico, which is part of the ocean, right? Part of the Atlantic Ocean, right? So you got ocean on one side and ocean on the other, and you're just out there in your little house. And not a whole lot to protect you. And if you go even further down, there's a place called Pilot Town. But there's no road. What is this here? There's no road to Pilot Town. Hold on, I got something. I want to get off this computer keyboard. Hold on a second. Wherever that stuff is, I didn't want to getting it inside the computer. I think I know what that's. Dough from the pie. I ate a piece of pie this morning, mince meat pie. Tuesday, Wednesday, and now Thursday morning, third piece with 3 cups of coffee. My daughter's mother made that pie for me. I love this Louisiana information, he says. Yeah, now there's a town further south called Pilot Town. And there's no road to Pilot Town, but there's some buildings down there. And what they do is, and there's apparently like some facilities, like a store and whatnot. It's very old. It's been there probably 200 years, close to that. Okay, if you're a ship captain, you're not trained to bring a boat through a mouth of a river, a pass. So what they do is they bring the ship up into the river. Now, once a ship goes into a river, it becomes a boat. Did you know that? It's not called a ship. It's called a river boat. Now, it could be a big ship from Ukraine, Odessa, Andrew Jackson times, yeah. So they stop at Pilot Town. The ship captain must get off of the ship. Then a special pilot gets on. to bring the ship through the rather treacherous mouth of the Mississippi River. These are specially trained guys. They make so much money. I was reading about this maybe 20 years ago. 20 years ago, they would make like $500,000 a year. There's only a handful of these guys in the world that can do this. Everybody else will wreck the ship. You know, all the merchandise will be destroyed, you know. And they stay in Pilot Town, and then they bring the ship up a certain place on the river where then the riverboat captains take over. And then they'll guide the ship all the way up to Baton Rouge. That's as far as they can go. And then they can turn around in the river and come back. Once you get north of Baton Rouge, the river is too shallow for ships. They have to use barges. And then you have barge captains, and then they have tugboats, or some people call them towboats. But they're mostly push boats. But anyway, those pull the barges and push the barges all the way up to Pittsburgh. Yes, you can walk on the riverbank from here where I am all the way to Pittsburgh, and even into New York, the Monongahela River and the Allegheny River. Or they'll go up to Chicago. Yep, that's right. You can take the river here and walk to Chicago because it's connected by river. That's right, always has been. Or you can go to Minneapolis. And I've actually driven on the river road mostly the whole way to Minneapolis. And I parked my car right by the river. I said, there's the river, it's so narrow here. And walk to the Minnesota Twins game. And or you could go up to Denver, Colorado, or they'll take it to Oklahoma City, or they'll go to Missoula, Montana. You see why New Orleans is important, Louisiana is important, because all that comes here. Okay, anyway, enough geography. Hello, Ron. Glad to see you now. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to you, Max Walt. And he says, how was your holiday? I thought it was mostly good. Christmas was nice. New Year's was nice. Matthew Harrelson says Missouri. Well, yeah, St. Louis, Missouri, of course. This highway right here where you can hear the cars sometimes, or I can look out the window and see the lights, that goes all the way to St. Louis. I could just get on there and start driving. Baton Rouge, Natchez, Vicksburg, Memphis, Tennessee, on up to St. Louis. And then to St. Paul, Minnesota. Yep. La Crosse, Wisconsin, where the big brewery is. Right on that highway, right there. Right there. I mean, up the Missouri River. Oh, yeah, right. That's right. Well, the Missouri connects into the Mississippi River. Where? In Missouri. All right. But I'm talking about all the branches, right? You know, it goes all the way to Rocky Mountains, all the way to the Appalachian Mountains. And all the water runs off those mountains down here, right? It's the basin. It's the bowl. All right, early times. Hey, let's forget the taste challenge. Let's just talk about geography. I could actually do that. I taught geography for so many years, and all the students would pass. You know, who would fail geography? I mean, a few would because they just wouldn't do any work. We're talking about 2%. I used to tell them, if you fail this class, you need to do a major self-evaluation, because it's not like math. You don't have to get it. You know, people say, I don't understand algebra, I don't get it. Well, there's nothing to get in geography, right? It's just information. That's all it is. Just straight information. It's nothing to figure out. Okay, Heaven Hill, early times. Oh, well, they look pretty much the same. Golden, clear, amber, alcohol eggs. I think it's going to be more of a challenge than that Canadian whiskey. Oh, you know, I did the Albertsons. That thing was unique, and you might remember within 10 seconds, I could tell them apart. 10 seconds, only with aroma only, right? I based it on aroma only. I said, that's Albertsons, that's Heaven Hill. That's how clearly defined they were. And that's why some people, got to clean that up a little bit. Some people will call bourbon different than whiskey. You know what I mean? They'll say, I like bourbon and sometimes I like whiskey. Well, of course, bourbon is a type of whiskey, but it's such a distinct flavor that a lot of people regard it as a separate item. Just like Scotch whiskey, they'll say, well, sometimes I like to drink whiskey and sometimes I like to drink Scotch. I've heard people say that. Do you prefer Scotch or whiskey? Somebody on Facebook said that. I said, well, she was saying that to a friend. And I said, well, you know, Scotch is whiskey. She said, well, I mean Scotch and bourbon. I said, well, bourbon's another type of whiskey. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it because then you come across as like a know-it-all that's trying to show people up. And I wasn't trying to do that. But being a teacher for all those years is sort of like maybe a bad habit where I'll correct people. But then I'm using my mindset on them. In my mind, I don't mind if people correct me, you know. I always appreciate it. I say, oh, right, I'm sorry, I was confused or I had it wrong. So I like that because I'm always trying to learn, right? Like the modern education said, lifelong learning. So when people correct me, I say, oh, yes, right. But other people aren't like that. They're very defensive and touchy about being corrected. So they don't regard it as a learning opportunity. They regard it as an attack. So I was very reticent to make the comment, but I couldn't help it. I had to. Anton, he must be from Russia. Hi, hello, Anton. A long time ago in the Soviet Union in 1984, he tried whiskey early times, and it was very good. 1984, that's back when it really was a bourbon. But they switched to used barrels, so it could no longer be called a bourbon in America. Now, it can be sold as a bourbon in other countries because other countries do not have that strict guideline. Matthew says, I love geography. You look at a map and remember, it's pretty simple. I thought so. I mean, talk about easy money. I got paid money to teach geography. And I said to myself, golly, I would just be doing this anyway. You know what I mean? I'd be at home looking at maps and talking about other countries, so I get paid to do it. So I always had the students drawing maps, coloring maps, doing projects. They had to do a nation project and they had to do a state project and a country project. So they had to pick a state and do a project on it, and then a country and do a project on it. I mean, it was easy because they had from August to December to do the state project, and they had from January to May to do the country project, and some still wouldn't do it. And I was 25% of your grade. I said, boy, that's pretty bad. You had 4 months, you couldn't even do the project. And I gave them incentives, like if you did it in August, you'd get 20% extra. September, you get, 15% extra, October, and so on, as to get them to do it early. So I wouldn't have to grade them all. I was actually doing it for myself, so I wouldn't have to grade them all at the same time. And some would be negligent and say, why am I stuck doing the Marshall Islands? I said, well, we ran out of states. So now you're stuck doing territories now. Because like the first day, students will raise their hand. I want Texas. Okay, you got Texas. Nobody else can do Texas. Nobody can do Texas but you. And I might have 3 geography classes that, or maybe 2 that day, and then psychology. So if you're in first hour and you pick Texas, nobody in fourth period can do Texas. No. You got it. You're doing the Texas project. Of course, you had these like honor students, college prep students that would do this project that was so far above and beyond what it should have been. Dressed up like a Texan and stuff, you know, that of course they would get an A, you know, like 150 A. And then other ones, you'd get a project and you were appalled how bad it was. You know, but it'd be enough that they wouldn't fail a class, right? So it might be horrendous in every way, but it might be like the lowest D minus, but still it's enough so they might still end up with a B in the class, because they might have 67% of 25%, which is added in, but maybe in all their other grades they did fine. I don't know. It's wasn't too hard to do a country project. All right. Not to mention current events each week that they could do. My grandfather used to get National Geographic magazines and would always give me the pull-out maps. Yeah, I've got hundreds of those, hundreds, all organized down there on that floor under that shelf. I got them organized by continent and then by country in the continent in alphabetical order. I don't get it anymore, though. I canceled it earlier this year after they had the article about transgender. I mean, National Geographic became worse and worse. It basically became National Marxist Agitation magazine. So I said, I don't, you know, I want to read about geography, not all this humbug that they put in there. It really was a geography magazine that's no longer about geography, if you read it. And that's been going on for over 100 years. There was a conflict within National Geographic about that, about their focus. Okay. Now on with the taste challenge. I got them well mixed with all that geography talk. See, I can't get on to geography because I'll talk for 6 straight hours about it without notes. Without notes. I used to always tell my students, I'm talking about it without notes. Okay. You've got a book. Okay. This is going to be very difficult. A lot of people think Austria and Australia is the same country. You ever notice that? Well, it smells like corn. Alcohol burn a little bit. You know, like I always say, U.S. Virgin Islands, yeah. I wanted to go down there and take a ferry to the British Virgin Islands. There is a ferry, and it'd be interesting to go see that. So I'm getting a lot of cornbread, some barley malt, though, honestly. Interesting, makes me think it's early times. Although over here, you know what? Over here, I'm getting a lot of corn too. Now you say, yeah, but Heaven Hill blended is 80% grain neutral spirits. I know, but you know what they make that out of? Corn. So it's corn on corn. Yeah, I hate the National Geographic Channel. I don't watch that junk. Why would I watch that? I could just get on the internet and look up Socialist Workers Party and read their stuff. I mean, that'd be more straight to, that'd be more to the point, I think. But I could see that developing over the last 40 years, National Geographic, because I monitor them very closely. And in fact, I have every magazine from 1923 to the present. Well, since I canceled it, but back behind those bottles, you see all that yellow? That's the Geographic magazine. I have a complete run, 1923 up, and I've read them all. I mean, I didn't read articles like The Fabulous Bumblebee. That goes back to the controversy of why do we have nature articles in National Geographic? Why don't you start a zoology magazine? And then stuff about the stars, the planets, geography, okay, the earth, not the universe. That started a controversy. And you had members quitting over that. If I wanted to read a damn space magazine, I'd buy, you know, Astronomy Today. It's like, how about we have some articles about, oh, I don't know, geography, you know, like maybe an article about Uruguay. Which they used to have. And they'd always have articles about different states. Colorado, and they'd have a long article about Colorado. Makes sense, right? You'll never see that today. Because I guess National Geographic decided geography's boring. Who wants to read a bunch of geography in a geography magazine? Let's make an article about robots. Sick. Well, this is going to be very hard because I'm telling you right now, you might say, ah, well, one's straight whiskey and one's a blend, so it's easily discernible. Wrong. Smithsonian Channel is amazing, though. I used to get Smithsonian Magazine, but I found it was too eclectic. You know, it was like good articles about countries and then some article about a painter. Or the world of the lute. L-U-T-E. And I'm like, I'm not reading an article about an instrument. So I didn't like it. Austral and Asia. Yeah, Australasia. Australasia. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay, taste. Because the aroma, I'm telling you, in the aroma. Yeah, you think the blended and the straight is going to be so discernible, but I don't know about that. You know, Alexander Graham Bell was one of the people that started National Geographic magazine. He was married into the Grosvenor family, and they started that. I think they were all Freemasons too, and you can kind of pick up on some of those signposts if you read that magazine carefully. They drop a lot of hints in the magazine. Smithsonian especially, because you know that was the whole thing. There was Freemasonry, you know that. Smithson. Just looked at the famous articles about the frozen corpses of Franklin expedition. Oh yeah. All right. On aroma, it's like nearly impossible. I think that over there must be early times, but I'm telling you, I don't know. And other mummies, yeah. That was in Smithsonian. That was the problem with National Geographic. They'd have articles about mummies. You know, it's like, is this National Geographic or is this National Archaeology magazine? Oh boy. And I guess I shouldn't bring up all that side commentary when I do these. But I guess in another way, it would be kind of humdrum just talking about the whiskeys like this and the other whiskeys like that. And then this one's this and this one's that. That is so rye. I mean, I just got a punch of rye spice. I mean, golly gee. That is, whatever this is, it has extremely high rye content. I kid you not. You would almost think this was like one of those, you know, like Redemption High Rye bourbons or something like that. I'm telling you right now. Woo! All I need now is some sauerkraut. Corned beef and a kosher pickle is with some Miracle Whip, and I'm ready to go with this. I'm drinking a Reuben. All right. This one's pretty high rye too, man. And I know I'm right. I'm not just blowing smoke. I mean, I'm serious. These things got a lot of rye spice. that may not appeal to you. I like it because, you know, I like spicy stuff, so it works for me, you know. Did you watch your game last night? I watched a little bit of it, but I turned it off and I went to, well, I say I went to sleep. I tried to go to sleep and I was just laying there. I said, well, heck, I just soon turn the game back on. But I wanted to get up early to do this, so it's sort of like a conflict of goals. LSU was doing well against Kentucky, but I said to myself, I said, watch. Kentucky's going to come back and beat them as usual. And they did. Well, 2 years ago they didn't, but, you know, I knew they would. But the Pelicans won, and I watched the replay of that this morning. I was very pleased. Man, this is something, you know, because I don't know, Heaven Hill, they're like a genius company, right? They're like a company of geniuses because they've taken this, somebody said flavored vodka. Call it what you want. I don't care what you call it. It's a blended whiskey according to the United States Government Tax and Trade Bureau. And it was $6.19. I saw this at Racetrack 2 days ago for $6.19. And I'm telling you, it is amazing. Now, early times, you know, this is about $8.99. I just saw it on sale for $8.99 at who had it? Winn-Dixie. But you can get it for you can get it for $16.99 for the big 1,750 milliliter plastic bottle. So I mean, it's even cheaper per ounce if you get it that way. So the price point on these two is not too divergent. Like you can get the big handle bottle of Heaven Hill, you know, the big plastic 1,000. This is 750 milliliter bottles, but you can get the 1,750 milliliter bottle of Early Times or Heaven Hill at Dormax or Sam's Club, and they're like $15. And I'm going to ask y'all some advice. You can comment if you'd like. I saw a bottle of Cuddy Sark Scotch whiskey, which I've never had, 750 milliliter, and it was $12.99 at Rouse's. I don't know if that's a good deal. You can tell me what you think. Also, Mathern's has a 1,750 milliliter bottle of Canadian Hunter. That's like a famous Canadian whiskey that used to be made by Seagram's, but Sazerac snatched it up when Seagram's went kaput. And they have a big bottle like that for $15.99. I don't know if that's a good deal, $15.99. How do you feel about those Pelicans, Boogie and Brow? I feel that potentially they could really be dynamite in a theoretical sense, but there's some problems. Anthony Davis is injury prone, as we know. I mean, he's okay. I mean, he's a dynamite, top-notch player as long as he doesn't get bumped. Now, if he gets bumped, then he might be out for a week. He'll fall on the floor and just be in terrible pain. Now, I'm not saying he's faking or anything. I just think he's fragile, you know, and he's not durable. So that's a problem. Boogie Cousins, you got that mercurial attitude, right? So you got to worry about him in a mental perspective, because he seems like sometimes he doesn't try or he's angry about something. You know, like last night, I didn't see. So he's a weird guy, you know. I think that's pretty well known that he's sort of a kind of a strange person, and you can't necessarily rely on him to consistently be zoned in on the situation. So potentially they could be great. In reality, they probably just be mediocre all the way till April, and then you'll start having like some big spat between Boogie Cousins and Davis. You know what I mean? Like they'll start hating each other or something. Blended Scotch is an okay deal. $12.99. I might buy it, but you know, I do have $35 left on that gift card. So I could buy one really nice one, or I could buy 3 cheap ones. But I think I'd rather buy the 3 cheap ones. I have three more things to play around with, you see. You might say you just want quantity over quality. You could make that argument. Okay. There's only one problem with that argument. I haven't noticed much detriment in quality, much deterioration in quality with these bottom shelf whiskeys. You see what I'm saying? I'm supposed to be tasting rot gut, filth, horror, abominations of mankind, but I'm not. Therein lies the problem. You know how many cheap whiskeys they got in this world? And they have all these complex flavors that they're not supposed to have. I'm not supposed to be saying all this. The word might get out. People might start buying the stuff and enjoying it. I mean, good grief. What'll happen to the world then? Okay. I got to tell you, this is a nearly impossible task, what I'm doing right now. They taste so similar. Peppery, corn, sweet, caramel, the dried flowers, the candied fruit, cake fruit, you know, the same routine, you know. So, golly gee, these things are close. But it is a taste challenge, and if I can't man up to the challenge, I need to quit it, right? So let's see. I'm going to try to call it. Oh, which one's better? Well, boy, that tastes good. I mean, that is a dynamite product. And for less than $10, get real. I mean, come on. I feel like Indiana Jones. I just got that. I just got the idol, you know, that precious idol, but I didn't have to like go through traps and everything to get it. I just walked in the room and grabbed it and walked off. And there was no traps around it. Cutty Sark is a famous prohibition whiskey, though. Yeah, I was reading about that on their website. Yeah. Okay. All right. I think the one here on my left could be your right. Is a little better. And I mean, it's so close. I would feel uncomfortable calling it a winner and then saying whoever lost gets a strike against it. You know what I mean? How I say 3 strikes, you're out of the tournament. Because it's so dang close, it would be unfair. It's almost like winner A and winner B. You know what I mean? This is like the gold medal, and this one is the silver medal. That's how close it is. True. I'm telling you the truth. Okay. Now, I can name a few that were losers, right? Barton. Barry O'Barton sort of was dull. Wasn't a winner. Kentucky Gentleman was not a winner. I believe there was one more that was sort of blah, you know, wasn't much to it. Have I had one yet that was like bad? No. Not bad. Just dull. Same thing with the gin. I had some gins that were kind of ho-hum, but I couldn't say they were bad. Even that Crystal Palace, I had to admit later, I said, you know what, it's not bad. It's actually a historic brand, Crystal Palace. I did some research on that thing. That's been around since 1934. All right. Okay, this one here, it's good to blab your mouth in a way because you can start thinking on it a little bit. And they kind of set in, you know, these whiskeys, they kind of set in, they breathe and set in. You have to let them do that. I'm tasting an underlying base. You know what I mean? Like there's probably that corn whiskey base or that grain neutral spirit. Well, that's what it is. It's just distillate. It's distilled corn that's distilled to almost 100% pure alcohol. You guys don't get Henry McKenna down there in original Heaven Hill brand. Not to my knowledge. No, not to my knowledge, we don't. But we might, because we get a lot of stuff down here that we're not supposed to get. I was looking on a website and they were like, not sold in your area. Oh, okay. I go to, and what do I see? Oh, well, look what's on the shelf. Like Blue Nun wine. Blue Nun wine is not sold in Louisiana. But there I am in Marrero, Louisiana, and I'm looking on the shelf. I said, now that says Blue Nun. Right there on the shelf, Blue Nun. And that is not an old bottle. It's good. It's $12.99 a bottle in Virginia. It's $15.99 for 1,500. They sell 1,500 milliliters because I noticed most of those big bottles are 1.75 milliliter. 1.75. I'm not, but I guess there's 1.5 milliliter. Okay. All right. So I think that's the Heaven Hill, right? And I think that's the Early Times. But boy, was it a challenge. You got it. It was a challenge. I mean, really, I'm not playing it up like play acting on here to get people to watch it. I just think it was a challenge. Now, I think Saturday, God willing, if I'm able to do it, I'll put the Heaven Hill up against the VO Gold. Seagram's VO Gold. I don't think that'll be any kind of challenge. The Canadian whiskeys are too distinctive that you can't mix them up with these bourbon-based things. Crystal Palace is a football club and named after the World's Fair in 1880 something. Oh, okay. But if you look at the label, it's like looks like the Russian, you know, Red Square, kind of like where the Tsar's palace was. That's what it looks like to me, but I don't know. All right, so let's say Early Times. Woo, I got it. Heaven Hill. HHKB, Heaven Hill, Kentucky Blended. Well, it was a tough challenge now, golly, but I got it right. I feel good. Now you saying, no, you feel good because of the whiskey. Yeah, okay. I'm the Oklahoma kid. Well, the thing about the blended, if you let them set in your mouth and you taste them, kind of go through the glass, you'll start to pick up that base. Or at least that was the case with me when I've done these challenges. So, but they do a good job covering it, you know, with the flavor, I'll tell you. Yeah, it's smooth. It's really nice for such a cheap product. Now, you go to come to Louisiana, you go to any of these convenience stores, Heaven Hill is like their major product. They got these bottles, then they've got the half-size bottles, and then the smaller ones, and they got so many different sizes. At Racetrack and at Circle K, I was over there, I was like, got like a whole area dedicated to Heaven Hill. And, you know, they'll have Early Times, but it's not as popular. Oh, it's in London, Crystal Palace. Oh, right. Yeah, okay. Forgot. Right, the Crystal Palace was the big convention center, the World's Trade Exposition in, what was it, 1850? Was it? Right, and they had the London World's Fair. It was this huge, one of the biggest buildings ever built, and it was called the Crystal Palace, all glass, to avoid being in the weather. And they had all the nations of the world putting on their industrial displays. It was a display of the Industrial Revolution around the world, and that was during the Second Industrial Revolution, you know, the one we're in now. And so you had India, They were showing what they were doing over there with their industry. The United States, of course, had one of the biggest displays. Of course, England, Canada, France, they had all this modern equipment. France had this big display. Germany, of course, and so on, you know, and it's like this huge thing. And it was the World's Fair, the World's Industrial Exposition in London. I think it was 1850. I could be wrong, but I know Prince Albert, he opened the fair, right? The husband of Queen Victoria. He's the one that inaugurated the fair, and it went on about a year. And then they used the Crystal Palace for other events, right? And then it burnt down. There was a fire and it burnt. It burned. Can't believe I forgot about that. Yeah, that's right. That's very famous. Okay. And they designed it, I believe, as sort of like a Byzantine Empire type structure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Crystal Palace. And then they were showcasing railroads, development of railroads, telegraph machines. That's the first email, right? Telegraph is the first email. What is it? It's an electronic message that you send over a wire, and they did that in the 1840s. No Morse code. That's the first email, right? You had to translate it yourself because they didn't have the computer decoding it, right? So you had to decode it. If you were a decoder, right, you get trained. So that's the first. That's how long email's been around, since the 1840s with Morse code. And telegraph. Oh yeah, so that was very fascinating, the Crystal Palace. All right, so thanks for correcting me, because see what I mean? I like to be corrected if I'm wrong or if I'm confused. So next up is Heaven Hill versus VO Gold, and I don't think it'll be much of a challenge, and it won't last too long. And it won't be me talking about Pilot Town and the Plaquemines Parish Peninsula and geography and all that. In South London now, there's a bad soccer club named Crystal Palace. Okay. Well, they might be comparable towards that, comparable to the Crystal Palace Gin, which isn't exactly top shelf, but it's popular in Louisiana. I gotta say, come to Louisiana, I'll show you a racetrack gas station in Circle K, and you'll say, look at all this Crystal Palace. People drink this. Oh yes, prodigiously. Okay, anyway, so I won again. I'm glad. I'm learning. All right, so I'm gonna start uploading a video review with me and David, you know, with the big beard. He reviewed, get ready for this, Miller Genuine Draft, and he brought the bottle to review. In case you think I did it, he brought the bottle. He also wanted to review Pabst Blue Ribbon. I still have that bottle. All right, thanks folks.